Welcome. I'm J. Michael Silver, and this is Foundational Steps, the show where I talk with people about the choices they've made to get where they are in life now. In this episode, I'm talking with Selah Victor, actor, producer, voice artist, and so much more. You might recognize her from shows like Modern Family or her voice from the animated Netflix series Miraculous Ladybug. We have a really great conversation you won't want to miss. Links for Selah and timestamps for everything that came up are in the show notes. Please support the show by leaving a comment or review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to check out our affiliate links. You might find something of value. Okay, welcome, Selah. Okay, obviously I'm laughing because of our conversation just 30 seconds or less ago. I said Selah,
Yeah.
and you said that's the Hebrew pronunciation of your name?
Yeah, that's if I remember correctly how they said it when I was in Israel. They said it more like, yeah, Selah. But my parents always said Selah, like Selah
Which I like. Are okay, so
yeah, it's a little more English sounding,
yeah.
Selah.
Oh, it has to in some ways be easier, I think, especially when you meet someone Selah. I feel like they're gonna hear that. Yeah. And since we haven't actually seen each other or spoken for a whole pandemic, 2 flipping years, yeah, I keep on seeing your name. So you're everybody,
yes. Like they see it, but they never, why would you hear my name out loud?
Right.
Digitally.
We're so close to being over this pandemic lockdown thing. But okay, so until then, I asked you, I said, is it a Hebrew word? And you said, or a name, and you said it's a Hebrew word.
Yeah.
And what does it mean?
So it is in Old Hebrew, it's a meditative term.
Okay.
And it's in the Psalms in the Bible, and the Psalms are all songs, right? That
yes.
you sing and play music to. So in old Bible days, biblical days, they would sing the Psalms, and then you see my name at the end of a Psalm, and it means like a meditation, pause and reflect on what you just sang.
Oh, wow,
so
that's
it's like
amazing.
a musical meditation.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
A contemplative rest, they called it. But when I was in Israel, the modern Hebrew meaning is I like this too, is a stronghold or a rock that you hold on to while hiking, for example.
Yeah.
So it could be either.
Well, okay. For me, that tracks with meditative as well. So
Right. Yeah.
I used to teach meditation when I was in my early 20s. I was teaching meditation because I grew up in a practice of mindfulness and kind of martial arts, and so it just was a natural thing to me to teach in my early 20s. So for me, when you pause and reflect on something, you are, especially when you're talking about like mantras or something spiritual in nature, you are kind of grounding it. You are owning it. You're crystallizing it. So for Selah, as they would pronounce it, to be a meditative term for kind of taking that pause, taking that moment, and then for the modern term, for it to be that rock to hold on to, it's the same thing for me.
Right.
That's amazing.
I see that. Yeah. I know. I've never articulated it like that. That's really how you just did, but it's super cool. And what's funny is my friends and family sometimes tease me because I'm not very good at meditating and I'm not very good at pausing. So I'm very impulsive and I'm very I don't really stop and think a lot.
I mean, I could go in either direction on that, because there's something to be said about being in flow. And, I feel like, when we first met, I met you and your husband. You were at the fake ice skating rink in Century City.
Oh my gosh, I forgot how we first met. That's so funny. I totally forgot that. Okay.
And like, you guys were just having a great time and you were just kind of in the flow or whatever. And so, like, I think that's a beautiful thing. And I feel like when we're not in survival mode and we are living our best life, we're in that thrive kind of abundance and, move forward. I feel like you're supposed to be in flow. And so maybe you just living in flow constantly and,
Yeah.
whatever.
I kind of do. Do you know the Enneagram? Have you
The
heard of the Enneagram?
I think so.
It's like this
It-
like
it-
personality
yes, 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 yes,
analysis.
yes.
Yes.
It used
And
to be really big, like a few decades back
in the
when we were,
70s, I think.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
before our
And
time or when we were little children.
yes, way before our time. Very young. No, my best friend is like an Enneagram specialist.
Oh,
And so she's done it. And I'm blanking on what type. I think I'm type 7, but whatever type I am is like,
there's 9 types, right?
yeah, there's
Yeah.
9. There's 9. Yeah, that sounds right. And
It's
I'm
been a
like,
long time, but
clear just keeps moving ahead and clearing. And, so I think that tracks with, living in the flow, because that is my type apparently.
yeah. Well, I mean, and also from getting to know you through your Instagram feed, since we met, pre-pandemic, you seem to be just always working on something. You're either doing voiceover, you're doing mom stuff, you're doing your personal content, wife stuff, like whatever, like you're just kind of always working on something, it looks like.
Never stop.
Again, beautiful, I think.
It's true. Well, I think for me, it's kind of like in this personality type thing that you always see the next project. Like if there's, I have always been like this. You can ask my mom if there is like a hurdle or if there's something, I'm like, well, I'll just do it myself. I'm going to just make my own whatever. And
Nice.
I was that kid in the neighborhood producing. I literally produced, I had a production company at the age of 10.
That's amazing.
Wait,
were you here in LA?
In Bakersfield. I grew
Oh,
up
Bakersfield. So did you have, I mean, I guess that's kind of close enough to have like the influence of like what a production company is and that whole thing.
totally. Although,
Yeah.
like to this day, I have no idea because this is unless I am aging myself here, but we didn't have the internet when I was a kid.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I honestly don't know, but I have this whole thing where it's Selah Victor's production. I literally was 10 years old. A stationery I made on their little Mac computer, where I was posting auditions all over the neighborhood. Come audition for the play I'm producing in my backyard. And my mom said one day she showed up and there was like 50 kids in our backyard. She's like, what is going on?
That's great.
I'm like, Mom, just calm down. I have my play here. So
that's really amazing. Okay, so the kind of the starter question that we talked about, and it sounds like it was very young in life. When was that conscious moment of like, I'm choosing what I'm doing in life. I'm making these choices and this is where I'm going and how I'm doing it. Not that anyone knows what they're doing, but that just like, this is the choice I'm making, whatever be damned. Like when was that first moment?
And we kind of talked about this a little. Well, I didn't talk about it as much with me, but I'm hearing the stories and examples you gave of yourself or other people. It's hard to say because I should say there's been several moments where I have felt that, because one moment was when I'll never forget this. I was the understudy for the role of Annie at the big Bakersfield Civic Light Opera.
Yeah.
And that at the time was like a huge deal. Civic Light Opera. I don't know if you remember those things.
I don't, but I mean, just being a child and being the understudy of any big show would be a big deal.
It was a big deal. And it was also at the same time devastating because in my heart of hearts, and to this day, I know I was better. Like, I know I was better. You know what I mean? I'm watching her and I'm like waiting in the wings going, what in the world? How did I had the red hair, I had the freckles, and my voice, I could sing that song like nobody's business. And I still had another orphan role, whatever. It was fine, but it was still a good time. But it was that kind of feeling where I just remember that waiting in the wings to go on because she was sick or something like that. And just like, I can do this. I am better and I'm going to prove it, and I just remember that feeling like I'm going to prove it to the world. I'm going to keep going. And it was interesting too. I sort of like tracked this girl along the years and she ended up quitting. And I was like, see, I never quit. And it was kind of like that moment where I just thought, I'm never quitting. I'm never quitting. As hard as it gets, I will never quit.
I had a similar moment when I had some moments very early on that like this was so amazing, this is so amazing. But I was 16 when I had that like, I'm not quitting. This is my life. This is the rest of my life. And I was sitting in rehearsal for I was playing Judd Fry in Oklahoma. So that's like the dramatic lead
Yes.
in that musical. And historically, that was like the first musical that had like an antagonist.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, so it was an amazing role. It was so much fun. And I'm sitting there, I'm looking at rehearsal, I'm sitting in the back, like memorizing my lines. I'm like, this is just it. This is what I'm gonna do for the rest of my life. This is just it. It was like a moment of clarity. Like when you hear about alcoholics having a moment of clarity, like that was
Yeah,
a moment of clarity for me.
that's right.
And then every day since has been, how do I do this?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where the bowl just, I mean, like what I was saying, like I just steamroll ahead. That's where I sort of just like steamroll.
Yeah.
Although there, when you said that, I realized too, it kind of changes and shifts because I don't know about you, but musical theater was my dream from a very young age. And then when I think it shifted, and I remember this moment of clarity very vividly because it was when I was 21,
Mhm.
is I got called back on Broadway.
Oh,
Um,
wow. So
for
you
another
were in New York at this time then?
I was in California, but I auditioned in LA and they called me back for the understudy again for the role of Louise in Gypsy.
Okay.
I think obviously a revival, but I don't remember which one it was. But
Yeah.
so I flew out to New York. I'm a California girl. It was my first time. It was the middle of December. I stayed in my friend's shoebox apartment,
Yeah.
and it was my senior year of college at UC Irvine.
Mhm.
And I realized I was like trekking through the snow, getting on the subway in my rehearsal heels. I didn't know you're supposed to wear snow boots and chain. I'm a California girl.
Yeah, New York, man, that's a big undertaking
It
just
was,
in and of itself. Forget the audition.
yes. And again, like
December,
people in this day and age would be like, why didn't you Google it and figure it out?
yeah. Right.
But we had Google at that time. It wasn't like the norm. I probably would have had to go to a library and sit down with a
Yeah.
computer. And it wasn't like information was so available all the
Yeah.
time, what to do. And so I'm like, this sucks. I am not living here. I don't want to be. And then seeing how my friend was living, trying to be a Broadway actor and like paying so much in rent. I didn't want to be poor. I grew up poor. I
Yeah.
wanted to be children. I'm like, I don't want to live in the cold. I don't want to live this far from my family. I'm done with this dream. And it was hard to kind of like swallow that pill, but it
Yeah.
was a very clear, I'm moving to LA. I want to do TV and film and be close to my family in the sunshine. If I'm going to be poor, at least it'll be nice out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to do this. And I thought to myself, like, I could book one commercial and be set for the year versus I found out how much they made on Broadway and I was like, what? Like, that's not what I want. I know that sounds terrible because everyone's like, live for your art and everything, but I grew up poor. Like I had nothing growing up. So I'm like, I don't want to do that again. That sounds
Yeah.
terrible.
I understand the live for your art, and to a certain extent, I lived that like for a long time.
Right.
I don't regret it. However, I would never ever recommend it,
Yeah.
and I don't think it's a healthy decision either, really, because you're struggling for the sake of struggling, and there's so many. We all face so much adversity, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, how wealthy your parents are or aren't. There is adversity no matter what. There is struggle no matter what. There is pain no matter what. And then how we deal with that is how much it becomes suffering or not.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. And so I feel like because that's all a foregone conclusion, let's try to make things as easy as possible,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, that's
And
what I was kind of thinking at that time.
yeah. And well, I think in some ways you're lucky that you had such a stark experience
Yes.
to make that decision, because I definitely didn't have that. I definitely was like, well, this is what you do. You struggle, you
Yes.
suffer, you're in pain.
So
Like,
true. You're right.
I just would have, I would have done things very differently had, like, I went to New York. I met with the manager. I didn't really like her very much. She kind of had the same thing to say about me. This was at 22 or 3. She had the
So,
same, yeah,
yeah.
right. But she had the same thing to say about me as when I met with agents when I was like 15, 16, which was, you kind of come off as too old for your looks, but you look too young. Yeah, right.
Same. Yeah.
And I was like, well, she didn't get me, so screw her. And this whole New York thing, it just, I don't know how much fun. Like, I grew up on the East Coast, so
Okay. So you were more
so
used
I
to
knew,
it.
yeah, I knew what the
Yeah.
cold and sleet and ice was. I was like, I don't really have any interest in doing that.
I know.
But I came out to LA thinking, like, no money is normal, like struggling is normal, um, beating your head against the wall. This is just part of the thing. Like,
Right.
I didn't understand that I could have gone and like, I had a friend that it turned out he was an architect. I had another friend that he was in construction. I had other, you know what I mean? And I'm like, after years of just beating my head against the wall, I'm like, why didn't I do one of these things?
Yeah. And
Like,
did you?
no.
Oh, I was like, wait, what? That's funny. But no, I know
Yeah.
what you're saying. And it's like, it's hard though, because when you have such a passion for something, I told my story as though I just was like, bye, musical theater. But to this day, I still, I mean, I wish I could have done musical theater.
Yeah.
I wish if I would have gotten the role of the understudy that day, of course it would have been a totally different situation. And
Much more difficult to make the decision not to go to New York.
100% I would have gone. I would have gone in a heartbeat. And then I would have been like, well, this is the way to, like how it's
Yeah.
kind of like that I booked like a TV show, a commercial, and a movie my first week in LA, literally my first week. And then
That's rare.
I know, but it was God's way of saying, or whatever, this is where you're supposed to be, because then I didn't book anything for 5 more years. So it's like, I
Yeah.
think if I would have gotten that understudy role on Gypsy, I would have stayed there, and who knows what would have
Well,
happened.
before you mentioned the LA thing and booking that, I was going to ask you if you had a sense that, you know, some people call it self-sabotage, some people call it God's will. I think it's a combination of things, because unless you're consciously doing it, there's some sort of unconscious energy, will, flow, you know, universe that just kind of pushes you through. And when you
Totally.
get to the other side, you're like, wait, but I didn't get to do what and things don't work quite like you thought they would, planned they would, or intended.
Yeah.
And I feel like those are the moments where the universe, God, whatever, self-sabotage takes over to get you across this experience, so that you can now, whatever the outcome was or is, you can then process that, learn it, and use that to mold the next thing.
100% agree. I could not agree more. That is so well said. And I think sometimes it is self-sabotage. That's also true, and then sometimes too, I wonder, like, if you're just not meant to be doing something. Like, I also have said in the past, I don't know, on my Instagram and things, like, I frankly wasn't good enough to do musical theater. And that's not beating myself up. It's just looking at objectively, I'm not a dancer. You really need to be a triple threat.
Yeah.
And voice wise, I wasn't able to do vocally what now is the way to sing, which my voice is very old school, you know, but it's, looking at those kinds of things. And then also looking, like you said, at what leads to what, and how in hindsight you can see, wow, this all helped me do this,
Yeah.
or like,
Uh,
for example, oh, go, no, go ahead.
Well, I
Sorry.
was just going to say, I mean, just to, kind of look at it from another point of view, had you booked it, you might have realized, in booking the job, that you weren't good enough, or weren't good enough, weren't up to your standards or what you saw as the standards. And that could have forced you or pushed you to work at a level that you didn't even know you were capable of.
True.
So I do think that no matter what the outcome is or was, it was for the best for, to get you where you're at now.
Yes.
Because you probably
Absolutely.
wouldn't have met your husband. You know what I mean? Like there's so many weird things.
Yeah. So many weird things. And one of the things I've always sort of not regretted, but I liked UC Irvine. It was a good choice, but I should have probably went to college in LA or been in LA at least.
I feel the same. Oh, I feel the exact same. I went to Virginia Tech. Now they happen to have an award-winning theater program when I went there. This was back in the 90s, in the mid 90s, I went. And so it was an amazing place to be on one hand, but truthfully, the reason why I picked Virginia Tech is because I didn't want to go to college. My parents had kind of locked me in to you're going to go to school for at least 2 years. It was a matriculation thing. They wanted me to kind of mature and kind of go through life a little bit. And because they locked me in, I was kind of despondent. And I got down there and I looked around. I'm like, all the buildings look like castles. I could live in a castle. This is pretty fucking cool. Let's do this. And that was it. That was really the deciding factor. And they just happened to have an award-winning creative writing program and a theater program. And I also fancied physics and engineering at the time. So I took a bunch of physics classes while I was there, which was top notch. But
that's amazing.
It is what it is. But to do it over again, I would have gone to UCLA or USC or any,
Well, and the worst part is I got into those schools, but
oh wow,
did not get into the acting programs because you had to audition.
Oh, and
at least for UCLA you did.
Yeah.
And I don't remember. I think I just nixed USC because I didn't get enough scholarship money.
Yeah, so expensive. It's ridiculous. Yeah.
So UCLA, I remember though, I didn't get into the acting program, and they're like, but you can declare non-declared and just like take classes. And I was like, no, like I was so offended at 18,
That's awesome.
Which is so crazy though. I wish so being one of 8 kids, I can see now my parents, and this isn't to blame them at all, but they had their hands full. They couldn't really guide me and say, hey, you should go here because this leads to, and maybe they didn't even know, by the way, maybe
they probably didn't. I know mine certainly didn't. They had no idea.
Oh, totally. They wouldn't know to say, hey, you should go to UCLA and take acting classes, or they might have, and I ignored them. Who knows? I don't remember.
Yeah, right. Well, and that's really the funny thing is because there are your memory of things is going to be how it makes sense to you, not necessarily the full picture. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but because we all do it, everyone does it. But going back and revisiting things that I had recorded or written down made me go, oh, I did. There's things that were going on that I had forgotten about or didn't realize and didn't include in my whole processing. I wrote a note to myself in Spanish 3, my junior year of high school.
Okay.
Saying that I was going to go to Virginia Tech. I was going to graduate with a degree in creative writing and theater. And then I was going to go to LA and be an actor. I had no recollection I wrote this note. And my Spanish teacher mailed these letters to us, I think maybe right before we graduated or right after we graduated college, 4 years later, 5 years later, or whatever it was. I think it was 5 years. So right when I graduated, I got this letter and I read it and I'm like, no way. I'm like, I don't remember ever thinking of Virginia Tech as someplace I wanted to go.
Right.
B, I very, very distinctly remember not wanting to go to college.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't know what I was going to study at that point in time because I didn't want to go.
That is so interesting.
Yeah.
But you tell yourself I know I've done the same thing. why did I go to UC and beat myself up? But I look back, I journal a lot.
Yeah.
And I look back at journal entries and I was so excited about UCI. I met my best friend on the tour who became my best friend and roommate.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't all, it was actually great in a lot of ways, really great. And I did so much theater there. I don't know. So it just, but you tell yourself the narrative you tell yourself and the regrets that can come from that, which sounds really negative, but sometimes that's what
it shapes us for, I'd like to think that it shapes us for the better no matter what, even if we go through a difficult period of time because of it. Because are you familiar with shadow work?
A little bit. I think I've heard of it.
For me, it was introduced as a child because both my parents have degrees in psychology and other things. Yeah. So I was having nightmares, and my father basically introduced me to shadow work as a way of dealing with the nightmares, and to process, to kind of work through them. And I don't even know if he was thinking of it in terms of, I'm going to teach you shadow work. It was more of like, it ain't real, kid, get over it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
But because he's such an existentialist, it really wasn't,
so funny. I
it
thought
was,
he would.
yeah. So, but I have found that shadow work as an actor has been like one of the more quintessential things, because it allows me to look at whatever I'm having a difficult time facing or dealing with or seeing about myself. It allows me to unlock a new aspect of character or character development or whatever. And a lot of the times, if I've gone through tough periods, whether it's a day or a year or more, I treat it as shadow work. Like, I am finding out, like, what do I hate about myself that makes me want to punish myself in this way?
Yes.
or something along those. Have you?
Totally.
I mean, without necessarily thinking of it in terms of like the Jungian shadow work, have you played with that idea or kind of that experience as a person, as an actor, or anything?
Not as much. Trying to think, obviously in therapy, definitely explore those things. But yeah, so that I'm also like really into, I love self-help books.
Yeah.
So I love psychology. If I could,
It's fascinating.
something else in life. Yeah. And especially as a parent, I read a lot of child psychology now. And I think about like all the stuff, I don't know, growing up that, you think now like, oh my gosh, like I'm never going to do that to my children or whatever.
Yeah.
That wasn't my parents' fault or anybody. It's just
No.
the way that life or the world was, and I think the things that we were told as children or just really influence us, especially as actors. And so I think about that a lot. And when I explore character work, I think about a lot of those things as well in psychology. And I don't know, but I will look into shadow work. That's super cool.
You'll find it fascinating, and you'll instantly love it, I would think, just because you're an actress and because you're a mother. I think, I don't know, I could be wrong, but I think you'll love it. There's also a thing called the golden shadow in Jungian psychology, and the golden shadow is that thing that is kind of where you shine. It's the thing that brings you so much joy that oftentimes, it's your power. And when you look inside yourself and you see that thing, especially, I know when I was younger, it scared the shit out of me, because it was like, that's too much, that's too powerful, that's like, but when you step into that, that's when, unconsciously, consciously, that's when people are like, find you charismatic or interesting, or like, oh my God, like you clearly love what you do, or you're doing, God's work or whatever. Like, I feel like that's
chills. I totally resonate with that. Yes, because, and there's those moments, I feel like I really felt that once I found producing, once I became a producer, really, I guess I should say. And like, I wear so many hats that.
Well, wait, was this when you were 6, or is this more recently?
This was more recently, not the 6-year-old, but yeah, like actually owning that is who I am at the root of myself. And actually, to go back to like what were you saying, where where everything kind of falls into line. All the stuff I'm producing on Instagram and TikTok and like I call them my sketches. Like,
Nice.
it's funny because I look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I learned to act, write, produce, sell things. I was like, that's a whole nother story. But I just like all these like edit. I'm an editor, all these weird random skills, voiceover, all work together when I'm producing these little sketches online. Whether it's for my brother actually asked me recently, he's like, so the brands write all those sketches or when I'm selling for a brand, doing an ad or something, he's like, so they're writing those for you, right? They're giving you the concept. I'm like, no, I'm writing it.
That's why they want to work with me, is because
He's like, whoa, that was pretty good. And he's like, but you edit it too? And I'm like, yeah. I did it. The one woman show. I'm just kidding, but
no, you are though. I mean, even if you're hiring people or starting to outsource things, it's still all of it's a different type of child, but it's still your child and it's still your creation. And I feel like, this is the power of technology. This is the power of the quote unquote modern world, because we have the power to create anything and everything we want for ourselves. And sure, there's differences in access to materials or equipment, or there's different types of privileges, and anyone in the United States, I mean, even the homeless have iPhones. So I mean, like we just live, it's a whole nother world in the United States.
Whole other world. I know.
But oh well, so many
things. I know.
Let's just stick with the producing thing for a second. So you talked about a couple like lightning bolts of clarity and consciousness of like, okay, this is not working or this is working. How did the producing thing and doing your own content, like how did that hit you? Was that a lightning bolt, or was that a gradual process?
Yeah, it was two different moments. So I had been producing, which came first? I guess. I know I can't even remember. Well, oh, I know. Okay. So you probably remember this trend. It was 2010-ish, probably. And everybody was telling you to do a web series, right? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Do a web series, they said. It'll be a great way to get discovered and get your show on TV. So I'm like, okay, you've given me a charge, So I produced this web series and it felt like I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This brought me back to childhood.
Oh, wow, nice.
Producing those plays in the neighborhood. I was so good at just like getting everyone in line, organizing, one of the things I forgot to tell you was I also produced carnivals for my block every time. And when I was a kid, and I would get all these local businesses to donate money or prizes or things for the carnival. I know, I'm like 10
That's amazing.
years old.
Yeah.
I was a little producer. And my mom would like drive me to all the little businesses to collect them. It was hilarious. But that was what I did to produce the web series. I got like money and free things from everybody, anybody and everybody. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm really good at this kind of thing. And got people to work for free and all this stuff.
Well, I mean, a good producer, I feel like, is able to get people to do things that they might not have otherwise even known they were capable of or thought that they would be okay with in many regards.
Yes. Yeah. And also make a good product. And I think we made a really great product. Unfortunately, it was sort of like the worst. I had done two simultaneously. One was called Trainers. This is the one I was more thinking of. And it was like about trainers at a gym and all this stuff, which was like literally at the time, 3 sitcom pilots got sold about that. And we're like, oh, geez. I know. Because we tried to shop it and I had some meetings and stuff and people were just like, yeah, we just bought one from Mindy Kaling or whatever. Of course. So, I know. And I was like, but not that it would have gone anywhere without a huge name attached maybe, but it was such an important experience and opportunity to grow and learn. And then from there, I started producing more theater. I became the production manager of my theater company.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And realizing just like I was honing my producing skills every day. And then one of my good friends who I had met, I was an actor. I am an actor, obviously still. But she was a director in a class for directors. So I was like the guinea pig actor in her scene.
Yeah.
And we just became super close. And as this is all happening with my producing, she's like, will you be a producer on my movie? And I was like, what? Yes, I would love to. She's like, we can't really pay you, but it's an indie film. And I said, I don't care. I just want the credit. I want to learn. It's not going to change my life to have a few $1,000s. Like, yeah, it would be nice, but
yeah, it'd be nice, but yeah, exactly. It's not gonna. I'm not going to Barbados all of a sudden.
That's
for a
right.
week.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. They're like, we'll give you back end, which I don't know. People probably, if you're listening, back end, do not count on that for anything. But anyway, it was the movie All I Wish with Sharon Stone and Tony Goldwyn.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and there were definitely way more experienced producers on it that had produced a ton
But
of.
she trusted you as a confidant and a partner.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and I was for her, and then the guys, the other producers, were so awesome to me and really kind of took me.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes,
that's really amazing, because in Hollywood, it can go the other direction so fast.
They also were like, "Oh, you're willing to do all the work? Go ahead, like, you do it."
Right.
Like, and this is before kids, by the way, so I could really put my.
You had more time, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it was awesome. It was such a learning experience, and we had another film that was ready to go, and then COVID hit, and it just totally fell apart. The cast as well.
Well, I mean, it could go next month or next year. I mean, it's
we're actually just getting it back up now. We're like, okay, I've had 2 kids. I'm ready to kind of get back into it. And
I went through a whole. So when I graduated college, my directing professor said, "So what are you going to do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to go out to Hollywood and be the next Michael Silver." And he's like, "Well, what if they don't want you?" I'm like, "Well, I'll make it myself then. I'll just do it myself."
Weird question.
I know.
Pretty well.
I was like, "What do you mean they're not going to want me? Of course they're going to want me."
You don't want me.
And in that same kind of afternoon, he told my parents that I have an odd, or I don't know, I can't remember how he said it, but like, I'm a natural producer because I can get people to do things they didn't know that they could do. And I hated that so much.
That is so funny.
And so for years, I produced things for singular purposes, to win a competition, to get myself an agent, to get myself on TV. And no one bothered to key me into the fact, hey, idiot, you keep on doing things to get something and you get it every time. Maybe you should do more of the thing that's getting you all these things.
But don't you feel like, I don't know about you, but when I first moved to LA, I'll never forget this, because I think back, I'm like, dang it, I shouldn't have listened to that person. She had said to me, don't ever let anybody know you're good at anything but acting. Didn't you hear that?
Yes.
Because then they won't let you act or something. I'm like,
they're going to pigeonhole you. They're going to relegate you to what they think you're good at, opposed to what you want. Yes.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
I wish I'd never listened to that, but I was, you're scared. But now I think also, though, to be fair, I think in modern world, you have Reese Witherspoon producing, you have Mindy Kaling. That's
everyone's producing.
Yes.
I saw the Bradley Cooper's new movie. He's the PGA. He's the Producers Guild of America on there.
Yes.
I'm like, everyone.
But everybody wears multiple hats or multi-hyphenates. Like, it doesn't matter anymore, which is nice. But so maybe, to be fair, in that time, it did matter. But
yeah.
I don't know.
At the same token, we didn't make it in that time period. So what would have hurt us?
What would have hurt us? I know. And there's so many things, there's so many things they told you, like I remember when I first moved here, someone was like, don't do casting workshops because it's pay to play, that you're spending money and blah, blah, blah. You should never have to pay to act.
All my auditions came from those.
All my credits. I'll never. Yeah. Oh, this was another clarity moment.
Most of my credits, but all of my auditions came from those pretty much.
Yeah. Well, and I would say if my credit didn't come from an audition that I got from Media Cat, it was like a fluke, because you can't, this is like a little tidbit for actors listening. In a world that's electronic, where they are getting thousands of submissions a day. Unless they have met you in person, they're not going to be like, oh, that face. It's really hard for them to sort through that. But if they've met you in person, it's a great way to know, I remember her.
4,000 people, 4,000 submissions. If you're lucky, it's only 4,000 these days.
That's right.
And how many people, dark hair, red hair, how many, you know what I mean? They all look, everyone looks the same unless they know you.
Yes. And how do they know you? They meet you in person. I would even argue, like, I can't wait for workshops to go back in person, because I feel like the Zoom ones, I
haven't done any Zoom ones. I haven't tried. I'm kind of also at a point right now where, until there's a change of guard within the casting directors, everyone kind of knows me and already thinks this, that, or whatever. Like the people who think I do comedy don't want to see me because I do comedy and they're doing drama. The people who do drama, all of a sudden they're doing a comedy. They don't want to see me because I do drama. I'm just like, I can do it all. I'm an actor. This is...
I know. Well, it's funny because ever since I became a mom on Instagram, so before I was a mom, I literally only played prostitutes and strippers. That's it. Like, that's all. Because I was very busty and very, and
I guess, but I wouldn't, obviously I met you after you were a mom. So like, I never would think, oh yeah, prostitute.
I know. Nobody does. It's the weirdest. I swear to God. Well, a lot of it's comedic too. And I do so much comedy, but they only would bring me in for those types of roles. So then, or like breastfeeding woman, I guess, those types of like, that's what she does. But then I became a mom, and now all of my roles are mom or like teacher or mom. I'm like, okay, because the casting directors that know me see me on social media or whatever, and they're like, oh, she's a mom, she's perfect.
See, this is, I understand this is also where we're at in the business, because in the last 25 years, approximately, the industry has changed a lot. It's not really about how great of an actor you are. It's about what do you look like. And if you don't look like a 50-year-old trucker that has killed at least 3 people, and then they don't want you they don't even want to read you. Unless maybe they know you, but then they're throwing a bone and, whatever. Where if you go back and look at, early 90s, on back to the 60s, for decades, like the guy didn't look like an athlete, but he played the athlete. He didn't look like a detective, but he's playing the detective. They just went for someone who was a good actor, who could deliver the lines, show up, be professional, do the job, and you like them on set.
I know.
And now you actually have to be a 50-year-old truck driving serial killer to get what?
Yeah. It's true. There's so much that I know. Well, we could digress into that, because I feel like you're absolutely right. It's not about acting. There's so much now too that you can't even do. I don't know, like, unless you're authentically this type of this, are you really Irish?
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's a whole nother kind of ball of wax that, is making it more difficult for the casting directors, and producers are just kind of tired. I think, my producer friends, they're just like worn out. They're like, yeah, we just want someone who can, say the lines. Like, does it really matter?
Yeah. Well, and that was the other moment of clarity, by the way, not to jump, but
no. Yeah, please.
I just remembered when you said that, because I was 26. Oh, remember I said it took me 5 years to book something else?
Yeah.
So I was almost 27. And I remember I called my dad hysterically crying, like something I didn't get or something didn't work out. And I just was like, I can't do this anymore. I'm just so depressed. Like, this is not what I came here for, to do all these odd jobs and not even book anything, or I can't even get an audition for anything, know? Every agent rejected me, everybody. And I'm 27. I lost 4 years of my youth going to college. Like, I'm way too old now. And which is funny.
Yeah. And even just a few years back when you were going through that, like it's gotten easier for women, but it was really difficult. It's still difficult, but it was even more difficult at that point in time.
100%. And also, by the way, a curvy woman, because I was not conventionally thin. I was thin, but I had big boobs, and I was athletic thin,
You didn't fit this stereo. You were too good looking to play the comedic friend, but
Yes.
you're too curvy to play the leading lady.
Yes. And
Yeah.
by the way, what you said too, like you look too old for your age.
Yep.
Basically, like I was not ever going to play a teeny bopper on the OC, even
Right.
at age 22. I would
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
And
same.
they all told me that, by the way,
Yep.
casting directors, agents, everybody. And curvy was not in at the time. This is
No.
the time of friends
The
and
waifs.
yes.
Yeah.
This is not something now. Yeah, but I'm not 23 anymore. So, but anyway, all that to say, I was just like, I can't do this. I'm not going to make it. I've tried 5 years. I'm done. And my dad was like, all right, what are you spending on marketing? And I said, and my dad and mom, by the way, are very, very encouraging of the arts and creativity. And my
That's
brother
amazing.
is a famous sculptor. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So they're all like, all of us are very artistic. And my dad started his own Bible college. So he's like an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And he just was like, what are you spending on marketing? And I'm like, what are you talking about marketing? What? And what do you know? And he's like, well, for my college, I spent, I don't remember what he said, but like X amount of dollars per month on
A lot.
Yeah. And this is a nonprofit. Like this is what he's spending. And he said, you need to set aside some money every month and spend it on getting yourself out there. How can you get yourself out there? And I said, well, postcards, I guess at the time. And I said, we have these casting director workshops, but everyone says it's a waste. But he's like, are those the people you need to meet? And I was like, yes. He's like, you need to set aside $250 a month and go meet those people.
Yep.
And so I did. And that's when I started booking and going on and stuff. And that was really like invest in your business. But that was a moment of like very decision. I'm going to do this.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's such a big thing because that is so actionable. Like it's one thing to, that moment when we're younger, when we're like, no, this is it. We're going to be actors. Like that's a whole nother type of decision, that business actionable moment of, oh, I can spend money on marketing and actually see more people, meet more people. Like that's a big moment.
It's a big moment. It's so true. And it happens so much with everybody. Like even with this Instagram business now that I have is I actually hired, so it's kind of different. They call them agents, but it's not like our agents. It's like an agent that you pay to get you to help you create like organization in your business. And also they can post for me when I'm not posting.
Oh, interesting.
She helps get me brands. She basically just like organizes my feed. So she's like, so I'm like, here are all my ideas for the month, like my artist self, And she's like, all right, this is how it would look best. This is what would do best then, and blah, blah, blah. And you really should do something for St. Patrick's Day coming up. We plan everything a month in advance. It's really like helpful in that way. But anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. And she's so great at reaching out to brands for me and kind of being the behind the scenes admin.
Yeah.
But, and I just don't have time for it, frankly.
Yeah.
But one of the things I realized when I needed to hire her, it was like you said, outsourcing some things. I realized like how I invested in acting that many years ago. Like I need to start investing in this to see this business grow. Yep. Making more money. I'm just kidding.
Well, but I mean, it all kind of goes hand in hand. I mean, like I always say that, the true currency is attention. Like money is just a physicalization of the true currency, and where you spend your attention or where you get other people to, focus on you and make you their attention is the true income, is the true monetary value. And then it just gets translated from that esoteric energetic form to a physicalized form, because we live in such a dense kind of objective reality. We have to somehow or another create the currency of money to validate that currency, to validate that experience. And I can say how much I hate it, but the truth is, it's an amazing thing for as long as we're living on this plane of existence. Take that for whatever it's worth. Then it's an amazing opportunity for us to measure how much attention we're getting and how much attention we're giving in a very tangible way.
Yeah, that's such an interesting way to put it, because you're right. Like I think for me, I felt very unfulfilled in a way by some of the auditions and roles I was in. And it wasn't as creative. And that was another realization with acting and producing, is like, I like to create, like, I want to be in the driver's seat. I don't want to say these weird lines that I don't resonate anything with them, like, yeah, of course we'd all love to play the roles Meryl's playing, but like, I'm not getting offered those anytime.
No.
So yeah, it was nice to be able to make my own roles and make my own things.
So how did you deal with all of that? From a coping standpoint, from a, process, like, was there any conscious level of, like, going back to even when you were 6 years old, was there any conscious level of, like, when you don't get what you want, or even when you get what you want, dealing with the excitement, or any part of the emotive process? Did you have any type of, like, I know this is what I'm going to do to deal with this? You mentioned journaling earlier, so I'm assuming journaling was definitely part of that. Was there anything else, or how did journaling manifest itself?
Well, I grew up, so my parents, I'm like, how do I explain that? We grew up very, very Christian.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were converts from, basically they were Jewish converted to Christianity. So I had,
Wow, that's hardcore.
Yeah. I was like, I don't know if I should explain. Never really explained that out loud.
Well, I mean, we won't spend a bunch of time on it, because that's a whole nother thing. I think that's a whole other episode. But
yeah.
from Jewish to Christian to opening a Bible college, like,
yeah. Oh yeah, I know.
That's a thing.
But it was, in a way, like, it was great because they were Jewish, but they weren't really spiritually, active.
Involved.
Yeah. So it was really a great foundation, I would say, for growing up. I really was immersed in church and prayer and the Bible. And in some ways I look at it and I'm like, okay, that's not how I want to raise my kids, with certain extremes. Like, there were definitely extremes at that time too, in the 80s, 90s.
Yep.
But now we've sort of, in the modern Christianity, I think it's a lot more tame. But some actually.
Well, I think it's community, what your community is. Yeah. Because there's definitely
LA Christianity.
Yeah.
Versus, like, yeah, actually I said that, and then I'm like, well, sometimes the term Christian these days is like.
My dad and I actually talked about this earlier in a very, very indirect way, that basically every single religious group on the planet has at one point in time plotted the death of another group of people for whatever story they came up with.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
and Christians plotted, obviously, for Jews so many
years.
Yeah. That was hard on my extended family.
But I mean, yeah. We've all plotted for it. We need to just stop plotting for, like,
yeah.
Can't we just all hug?
I know. And then with everything going on, anyway, but so that being said, like, I was very, very spiritual as a child. In fact, I would say out of all 8 of us, there's 3 of us who were very, very spiritual.
Did you just say 8, like including your parents, or?
No, I have 7 siblings, 6 brothers, 1 sister. I know.
That's a whole nother episode too.
That's
like
a whole nother thing.
We won't touch that. That's just like, wow. Okay.
It was nuts. And that was why too, like, I think a lot of these entrepreneurial producing, all of us are very much self-starters and independent. And
that's amazing.
Any of us have had a real job, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, and that was, my family were, before I was really alive, I guess, my parents were teachers. My mom still ran, I think, the preschool up until maybe I was like 6 or 7, and then she went into business with my dad. But my dad was off, running around, running things and building businesses, growing up. So, like, the entrepreneurial spirit was my childhood.
Yeah, and you have to have that as an actor. Yeah. You really do.
Oh yeah. If you don't see yourself as a business, then you're already starting at a massive deficit. And if you get lucky enough to have any kind of career, the odds of you being taken advantage of goes through the roof, because you have no idea what you're doing. And you're going to spend years, playing catch up, trying to figure out, wait, why don't I have any money? Or where did it all go?
Like that. Some famous actors were like,
lots. It's happened to a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I'm curious on the religious spiritual thing. And I know we're kind of running down on time here. So, um,
I heard I was worried about the kids, but I heard them take off. So I think we're okay.
okay.
I did,
I did hear some foot stomping. I
I
wasn't
know.
sure if that was the kids or not.
They went downstairs. I just want to quickly check and make sure my babysitter wasn't here yet. Okay. I don't think she is. All right. Cool.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. On the spiritual thing though, because I didn't grow up with religion at all. My dad's an atheist, and my mom, she had a complicated relationship with religion. And I think if she could just have snapped her fingers, if my dad would have gone along with it, she would have become a Quaker.
Oh,
Very much nonviolent, very like, all my let's just hug, like that comes from my mom.
yeah.
um, and like, although I know that's not the possibility for most people to just hug it out. I do think that there's something about a spiritual connection. Doesn't have to be religious, but it can be if it's an open-minded one. But that energetic, spiritual, God, universe, however you want to talk about it, thing can be so powerful in allowing us to accept other people, accept ourselves, come at things from a neutral position, like, where, hey, I don't know what this is or what this could bring, but it's in my path. Maybe I should, instead of judging it, maybe I should, be open to it. And I
Totally.
kind of feel like spiritual, energetic, universal, religious, I feel like those are really great, potentially fantastic tools to help us be open to our path without getting in our own way. So
Absolutely.
was does
Yeah,
that track?
absolutely. And the coping mechanisms and of being able to pray and like you said, for other people it may look different. For me, it was prayer. It was being able to be vulnerable that way to something bigger than yourself. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And just like yeah, seeing that there's a bigger purpose and there's a
I mean,
divine.
I feel like even if you're an atheist and don't believe in any kind of God, universal power, or interconnectedness or anything, I feel like it's good to just pretend like you're not the biggest thing.
Yes.
A little bit of humility goes a
No,
long way.
it's really true. And of course, obviously to this day, I mean I'm Jewish at the core. I question everything.
Yeah, right. It's the coolest thing about the Jewish religion or
Totally.
culture is the question everything,
Everything.
and you don't have to find an answer, but you got to question it. And if you get
Gotta
an answer, question that too.
really, yeah, exactly. And
Yeah.
I really do. I read books about faith and all the apologetic. I love all that stuff. I love arguing.
Do you still pray?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Is it has your prayer um changed or altered or become something other, like, or has it all been more or less the same core?
Yeah, no, what's so interesting is I'm so glad, like you said before, looking back on journal entries or things that you wrote that you're like, oh my gosh, that's what I was thinking. I used to pray so much about my acting career. Like that was
Mhm.
so important to me. And I would just pray, like, God, please open this door. Please let me get this role, or please, whatever. And now I look, I'm like, wow, it's not even important. And not that I don't love booking things and I don't
Yeah.
love acting. I love, of course I do. But what now, like, I often pray in my sleep. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, or I don't know. I've
I'm
never really talked about it out loud.
like, as in terms of like you dream prayer.
Yes, like I
Okay.
would be praying to God in my, like, for example, I know the reason it's on my mind right now, and that I said it out loud because I really don't think I've ever said this out loud, is I was literally praying for Ukraine in my sleep last night.
Oh
Like,
wow, that's
yeah, I
amazing.
woke up and I was just like, please help those people, and my heart was just, welcome. I have ancestry lines that go back to Ukraine, so I don't know if I was just feeling that,
I
but
feel that.
anyway, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, okay, quick, really weird side esoteric note.
yeah,
I think whether you want to bring in any kind of divine plan or not, I think this is a opportunity for us to decide what kind of humans we want to be. Do we want to be the humans that play these win-lose games where it's about dominance and about, zero-sum game, power, or do we want to be the humans where we try to make the world better for everyone?
Yeah, I completely.
Because you can't have them both.
No.
It's either win-win or it's win-lose, and win-lose means everyone loses sooner or later, and win-win means we can all rise. So I don't know. I love the fact that you were praying in your sleep, because to me, that's saying that there's people out there, and I think we're legion, but there's people out there that really want everyone to have a better life. And maybe we can't snap our fingers to get there, but we can incrementally get there over time if we're willing to stay the course.
Well, I think that's one thing motherhood too kind of put in perspective for me, is that what you're saying, like having empathy and teaching empathy to our children and having that in the world, I guess, is the most important thing. And loving my neighbor as thyself, is the most important thing. And that's what I mean. Like, how did I pray about my acting career? Like, why does that matter? when you spend your last moments on earth, are you really going to look back and be like, gosh, I'm glad I booked that guest star? Like, gosh, I'm glad I was on that show. No.
Not unless it changed someone's life. And then maybe you're like, oh my God. But you can't know that that's going to happen. Like, and you never know how you're going to touch people or how you're going to impact people. And like, for me, acting has always been about, there's two components. The personal side is, I want this because I really enjoy it. I mean, it brings me a level of pleasure that I just don't get doing anything else.
Yes, totally.
The non-personal side is, I feel like I get to talk to people, and this could sound a little bit weird, but without having to talk to them. Because it's like I have a private communication with their inner selves, and my inner self gets to talk to their inner self. And my inner self wants everyone to be happier and play. And so I feel like I have the secret communication between anybody that watches something I'm in, where like I'm transmitting the secret sub signal. I was into like spy movies and all that other stuff. So it's like the message under the message,
no,
I mean, we talk about it in subtext, but that's, I would say, different than what I'm talking about. I'm talking like this other level thing where when you're an actor, we all have this agreement that we're playing. And it's okay that I get angry at you and yell at you and I'm violent, because we're just playing. And it's just, and you enjoy it and I enjoy it and it's fun and other people watch this, enjoy it. And so that to me is the secret conversation between actors and the rest of the world, the audiences, is that, hey, we're all just playing a game, play with us.
Yes.
And that's the ultimate, like, why I wanted to be a successful actor.
Yes. And that I agree with completely. And also I didn't, before, when I was saying, oh, it doesn't matter. Of course, like, I don't mean to minimize what we do at all. I was more meaning like, why did I put so much importance in my own life on that? But
yeah, you also have since found something that has more value and meaning and brings you probably a greater amount of joy than just booking a role.
Exactly. But that being said, I 100% agree. What people need so much, the joy and the cathartic experience or whatever from TV and film, especially, but even theater, all of this, especially theater too, actually, but we haven't been in the theater for a few years.
No.
But like right now in the pandemic, people needed TV and film. Like,
oh yeah.
We needed that.
Spider-Man was the biggest film because everyone needed.
Everybody needed that escape. It's just like in the 30s, in the Depression, they needed Shirley Temple.
White. Yeah, and Shirley Temple. Yeah. Well, Snow White. So an economist that I met, I don't know how many years ago, this is a long time ago. This is over 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago. He told me that he would get hired by all the studios periodically, And he's like, I can't really go into the details with you because it's all proprietary information, but I'll tell you the basic results were the same every time. And one is Snow White is the highest grossing, most watched film of all time when you account for population and inflation. And the reason why, by all the metrics and all of the, whatever that you could measure it by, is because people were depressed and they needed an outlet and they needed a way to escape their lives and give them hope and give them joy. Yeah. And Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs did that.
I remember hearing that. And Wizard of Oz too.
Yeah. Sure yep. There's, I mean, a lot of films during hard times do that. I mean, I think from what I'm hearing from you, the difference is it's like, acting, it sounds like for you now, and please correct me if I'm wrong, this is just kind of what I'm hearing. Acting for you now is like a joy and a pleasure and almost a vacation because
100%. Yeah. I'm just kidding. Sorry, go on.
No, because it's not that you don't love it any less, but you have something else that you're pouring like your life into as a creative individual, and you can only do that to a point with that as an actor. Like we can't, like you said, there's someone else's words, it's someone else's direction, it's someone else's production, so you have limited input. The joy, I think, that all of us feel in that is there's a certain freedom because we get to just focus and play on that and let someone else deal with all of the other crap.
It's so much easier. Yeah. Now when I book a job, like I did a recurring on, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it yet. I think I am, because it's going to be out soon. You can always edit after, but I was on For All Mankind.
Oh, cool.
A few episodes last year. It's finally coming out soon, I think. But it was so nice to just like sit in my trailer and wait for them to be like, Selah, we're ready for you to say your line. Like literally I had one line in each episode, but it was fine. And by the way, I said that about having one line or whatever and not what I want to do, but it was awesome to have those one lines and just easy. And I actually kind of felt like sorry for the main character who had to break down and have this like huge emotional thing. And I was like, sorry for
going through the shit. Yeah, they're going through it. It's funny you say that. I kind of feel the same way. I mean, I would love to have like do a movie where I get to go like just so visceral and raw. Like that would be amazing. But I think if I'm on a TV show, my ideal TV show would be something, I haven't seen any USA shows recently, but like, remember Burn Notice or White Collar? Yeah. Those shows, there's like a joie de vivre, like there's like a playfulness, there's action, like oh my God.
My friend did a guest star on NCIS recently, and she said, because that show's been 28 seasons or something, I don't even know. Forever. Goes, those guys struck gold. They struck gold because it's fun, it's not boring, it's like got the like lightheartedness to it, some comedy, and yet they get to do kind of cool things. And it's so predictable. They know when they're showing up, when they're leaving. It's very.
And they probably know the writers and the characters so well that memorization is probably a matter of minutes. You know what I mean? Like, because they're just living it.
They're living it. And it's so nice to be like, for my Miraculous Ladybug show, people ask me this all the time. Like, do you get bored playing the same character? Like, no, I love it. I know Chloe inside and out. Like I can improv in Chloe, no problem. It is fun,
I mean, it's kind of like, I feel like to some extent, it's kind of like, well, do you get bored being yourself?
Yeah.
Because
no,
I mean,
never.
Like I might be bored because I can't do exactly what I want. And so I'm stuck saying, well, what do I want to do right now? But like, do I need to start a new project right now? But I'm with you. Like, I do miss I haven't done a play that ran for more than a couple weeks in so long. And, I still kind of have a little bit of a dream for Broadway. Like
I never dies. Me too.
Yeah. I do think like if I got on a TV show, then I would really make a hard play to do something on Broadway because
Right here with you.
yeah, because I feel like that's the time to do it, where otherwise it's such an uphill battle. It's so cutthroat. There's the life, it's just not what I chose,
No.
you know?
I actually also, I think the trajectory is easier. Like you can play easier in a way, like you can get the role that you would never get
Yeah.
have you not been famous from TV and film.
Yeah.
Because I knew that. I have this thing, I should post this on Instagram. I got to find it. But it was this timeline I made literally in 6th grade that was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go to college and then I'm going to book some TV and film roles. And that way I'll get on Broadway.
Nice.
And my 10-year plan, which, you know, I've way surpassed that.
Yeah.
But all that said, like, even back at 12 years old, I knew, oh, gee, the stars of Broadway are all from TV and film, you know, like that was.
Yeah. And more so than ever. I mean, I think like maybe 20 years ago, there were some TV stars and movie stars doing Broadway, but now I feel like if you haven't won a Tony, then you have to be from TV and film.
Definitely.
Like to otherwise they're not getting the money to do the show. It's just not happening. And I also think that like if we were to come to that now, there's a level of gratitude and respect for the people that have been struggling that life, that like being a co-star with these people now, like there's so much, oh my God, like how much envy, and you went through so much, and like thank you for being a great like partner. Like I feel like I might have had that 10, 20 years ago, but not the way I would now. Like it's just different.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I don't know about you, but I've had so many Broadway friends move out here to make it into TV and film. And it's hard for them because they're starting from scratch, just like we did,
Yep.
you know, but they're older or whatever.
Yep.
Which is crazy to me because they are so talented and they did so much on Broadway. Like, I'm like, do you know how talented this person is? Hire them. Like, but it's hard. It's just
yeah. I mean, it goes back to what we were saying. What I said about the casting directors, they primarily go for your personality and your look. If it doesn't fit the role, it doesn't matter how well you can play that character, because it's not a knee-jerk reaction. I decided I wanted to play murderous villains a number of years back because I just thought it would be more fun. I thought it'd be more interesting. And
to play the evil person.
Like yeah,
holy character.
There's so much more. Yeah, there's just, and I had a couple auditions. I just crushed it. And one of the comments came back. I was up for like the lead bad guy for the pilot of this new series, and this is a number of years ago. And the comment that came back was like, he just looks like such a nice guy. And I was like, yeah, but what about, you know, where I'm like the horrible, torturous killer? They're like, oh yeah, you're scary in those moments too. Like you're great. And they loved you in that. But like when you're not in that mode, you're just like, seem so nice and approachable. I'm like, but that's what makes it interesting.
Yeah.
And my manager at the time, I'm like, yeah, they think it's kind of too different. And she showed me the guy that they were leaning towards, and I looked at him, and he kind of had like a milky kind of greenish skin tone, and he had a little bit more of a kind of a snake-like face. And I got it. I understood. I didn't agree with their casting. He's a great actor. But I'm like, I just don't think that's the interesting choice. I think the interesting choice is to have someone, especially for a killer, that you want to go and talk to or you think you're safe with.
That is so true.
But you know,
no, it's true. And I know you probably sat on the other side, you know, whether it's producing or casting.
Oh yeah.
And it is so interesting, isn't it? Because there's always somebody in the room who's fighting for that interesting choice, whether it's yourself. Sometimes it's not yourself. Like I remember casting something and I was like, no, it has to be this. Like I just couldn't get it out of my head, you know? And I think And I just remember the casting director fighting for this other person. I'm like, how can you even see that person is right? Like they're way not right, or whatever. And it is so subjective. It's just one person sees it as this, another
Yeah.
sees it as this. And
So, okay. So I got a quick question, and maybe this will wrap us up. When it comes to vision and when it comes to like, writing copy for, for the things you're doing for your Instagram or new short or, whatever it is you're playing with, how do you reconcile your vision with like the parameters that have to be there, like things that have to be there? Like, how do you know it's going to work? Is it strictly on faith, or like what's that process look like for you?
that's a really good question. Yeah, because sometimes the brands for Instagram, for example, will give you very specific
Mm-hmm.
parameters of what you can and can't say or do. And that is, I think it's tricky. But I also kind of like it. Like it's like it helps you to narrow your creative choices down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like another thing right now I'm producing is, I can't say who it is, but I became friendly with this famous singer-songwriter.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm producing this movie musical of her with her. Did you ever see like Across the Universe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like, you know how they made the songs part of
Yeah.
the
Oh, yeah.
script,
It's
but
amazing.
they were like out of context. The
Mm-hmm.
Beatles songs were out of context, but they were in the script. So that is very much a parameter in the movie. And the woman she's writing it. I'm more like developing it. I decided I do not like writing screenplays. That's just like
It's a whole skill unto itself.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll let you write it. I'll just develop it with you, give you ideas. But one of the things, we started going down the road of it being like more comedic. And then we're like, oh, it just doesn't work. Her music is so dramatic and so
Mm.
sad. Her music's very depressing. We're like, we got it. This just is a drama. It's a drama, and
Mm.
we had to kind of like shift and change. I don't know. So it does. Yeah, you kind of have to listen to those parameters and listen to your instinct, but I like it in a way.
Yeah. I mean, no, I totally get it, because it gives you, it almost gives you more to work with, because
Yeah.
you're not just in the floating in space saying, what can I construct? It's, you do have parameters, and then it kind of forces you to be almost more creative, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
That's
It's
cool.
like
That's really cool.
working with a really, sometimes, do you remember in theater when you get like a really bad director and they would literally tell you like, go stand over there or go, whatever. And you're like,
Why?
why? Yeah. But then you kind of like have to just justify and make in
Yeah.
your mind something cool to make it work. I don't know, something like that.
No, I totally get that. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything, because I mean, we could go for hours more, obviously. There's so many topics and so many, deeper kind of through lines we could touch on. Is there anything that kind of crystallizes kind of your process, how you think about the choices you make, for the next project, or I don't know if that makes sense. Like,
Yeah. No, I know.
any,
I actually, it's so funny. I'm actually struggling with that right now. And I
mm,
feel like I have like a bit of imposter syndrome with some of this like Instagram stuff and TikTok stuff where I'm like, is this good? Should I keep doing this? And like a very much self-doubting and like, so I kind of was like, man, what would I tell me if I was
yeah.
like, giving advice to a younger, I
Hmm.
would be like, don't be afraid to fail. Just keep going, keep trying, keep experimenting. And I don't know, like it's hard to, sometimes I just really struggle with when I'm trying a new venture or trying,
Yeah.
and a new hat on or whatever.
Don't be afraid to fail, I think, is awesome.
Right?
Yeah, I think that's where we wrap it for today. I think that's magical, because that really is, you can hear it a million times, and at some point in time, hopefully it clicks, because I think that is kind of a magic sauce, or
Yeah.
mixture to get anywhere you want to go.
Never forget. Yeah. And it's scary. Like you definitely feel like, oh, everyone's going to think I'm an idiot and they're going to hate this or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, but you got to just keep going.
Do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Self out there.
That's awesome.
All right.
Don't forget to leave a comment or a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts. New episodes every Tuesday, and check us out on YouTube for short clips from each episode. Thank you. And until next time, remember, your life story is yours to write and rewrite as many times as you want.